Jake Morrison had seen many strange things in his 20 years as a space commander, but nothing like this. He stood on the bridge of his ship, the horizon's edge, watching 3 massive objects appear on his screens. They had come from nowhere, just suddenly there at the edge of human space. "Sir, you need to see this," called out his radar operator, Pete Collins. His voice shook with excitement. "These ships are huge, bigger than anything we have ever built." Jake walked over to Pete's station and looked at the readings. The numbers made no sense. Each ship was over 2 miles long and half a mile wide. They moved through space without any visible engines or fuel trails. Even stranger, they gave off energy readings that were impossible. "Lisa, get over here," Jake called to Dr. Lisa Park, the ship's science officer. She was a smart woman who had studied alien technology for 15 years. If anyone could make sense of this, it would be her. Lisa hurried over and looked at the data. Her face went white. "Commander, these energy readings are off the charts. These ships are putting out more power than our entire fleet combined. And look at this." She pointed to another screen. "The metal they are made from doesn't match anything in our database." Jake felt a chill run down his spine. Could they be alien ships? Maybe, but wait. Lisa's fingers flew over her keyboard. "I'm picking up something else. There are markings on the hulls. Very faint, but I can make them out." The main screen flickered and showed a close-up view of the lead ship. Jake squinted at the faded letters. Along its side, when he could finally read them, his heart nearly stopped. "USCS Enterprise," he whispered. Lisa nodded, her face pale. "The other 2 ships are the USCS New Horizon and the USCS Liberty Bell." Every person on the bridge fell silent. These were names from history books. Ships that had left Earth 400 years ago during the Great Exodus. Ships that had vanished without a trace when their new faster-than-light drives had failed. "That's impossible," said Pete. "Those ships are legend. They disappeared centuries ago with 50,000 people on board." Jake's mind raced. The colony ships had been humanity's first attempt to reach the stars. Earth was dying then, poisoned by wars and pollution. 3 massive ships had been built to carry people to new worlds. But something had gone wrong with their experimental drives. They had jumped into hyperspace and never came back. "Sir?" called out his communications officer, Nancy Torres. "I'm getting a signal from the lead ship. It's on old human frequencies." "Put it through," Jake ordered. Static filled the bridge speakers. Then a clear, strong voice came through. "This is Captain Ryan Blake of the Earth Colonial Fleet. We request permission to dock with your vessel. We're coming home." The bridge erupted in shocked whispers. Captain Ryan Blake was a name from the history books. He had commanded the Enterprise when it disappeared. But that was 400 years ago. The man should be long dead. "Sir, what do we do?" asked Nancy. Jake thought quickly. These could be alien ships trying to trick them. But the markings were real, and the voice sounded human. More importantly, if these really were the lost colony ships, this was the greatest discovery in human history. "Open a channel," he said. "Channel open, sir." Jake took a deep breath. "Captain Blake, this is Commander Jake Morrison of the Galactic Alliance ship Horizon's Edge. Can you verify your identity?" There was a pause. Then the voice came back, tinged with sadness. "Commander, we left Earth in the year 2157. Our mission was to establish colonies in the Alpha Centauri system. We carried 15,000 souls on the Enterprise, 20,000 on the New Horizon, and 15,000 on the Liberty Bell. We were humanity's hope for the future." Jake felt goosebumps rise on his arms. Those numbers were exactly right according to the historical records. "Captain Blake, it's now the year 2557. You've been gone for 400 years. Earth is dead. It died 2 centuries ago. Another long pause. When Blake spoke again, his voice was heavy with grief. We knew it might happen. We saw the signs before we left. That's why we had to come back. We have much to share with you, Commander. Things that will change everything. Lisa grabbed Jake's arm. Sir, look at this. She pointed to her screen. These ships are doing something I've never seen before. They're bending space around themselves. The gravity readings are impossible. Jake looked at the display. The 3 ships were creating ripples in space-time itself. It was technology far beyond anything humanity had ever developed. Captain Blake, how is this possible? How are you still alive? How do your ships do what they're doing? It's a long story, Commander. We went somewhere different. Somewhere where time flows like water and the rules of physics can be bent. By will alone, we learned things. We became more than we were. But we never forgot who we are or where we came from. Jake felt the weight of history pressing down on him. These weren't just lost colonists returning home. They were something new, something evolved. The readings proved their technology was centuries ahead of anything the Alliance possessed. We need to dock and talk face to face, Blake continued. What we learned out there, humanity needs to know. There are things coming, Commander. Dark things, and we may be the only hope of stopping them. Jake made his decision. Permission granted, Captain. Dock with Bay 7. But I'm posting security teams throughout the ship. Understood, Commander. We would do the same. As Jake watched the massive ships approach, he wondered what he was letting aboard his vessel. Were they still human after 4 centuries in unknown? Space? What had changed them? And what were these dark things Blake had mentioned? In a few hours, he would have his answers. But somehow, Jake knew that nothing would ever be the same again. Jake Morrison watched in amazement as the Enterprise moved toward his ship. The massive vessel glided through space like it was swimming through water. As it got closer to the docking bay, something impossible happened. The ship's hull began to change. The solid metal started to flow like liquid, shaping itself to fit perfectly with the docking port. Sir, this is beyond anything we know, said Lisa Park, staring at her instruments. Their hull is acting like it's alive. The metal is reshaping itself at the molecular level. Pete Collins shook his head in disbelief. Commander, the docking. Clamps aren't even needed. Their ship is forming its own connection with ours. Jake felt his hands shake slightly. In all his years of space travel, he had never seen technology like this. The metal of the Enterprise flowed around the docking port like water, then hardened into a perfect seal. There was no sound of impact, no grinding of metal against metal. It was as smooth as silk. Docking complete, announced Nancy Torres. All seals are perfect. Air pressure is normal. Jake took a deep breath. Security teams to docking bay 7. I want everyone armed, but weapons lowered. We don't know what we're dealing with. He made his way down to the docking bay with Lisa and his security chief, Bob Turner. 6 armed guards waited for them, their faces tense with worry. Jake understood their fear. These visitors claimed to be human, but their technology was like magic. The airlock door on the Enterprise opened with a soft hiss. Jake expected to see people in old-style spacesuits or maybe strange alien creatures. Instead, a man stepped through, wearing simple blue clothes that looked almost normal. He appeared to be about 40 years old, with short brown hair and kind eyes. Commander Morrison, the man said with a warm smile. I'm Captain Ryan Blake. Thank you for allowing us to dock. Jake stared at him. You look exactly like the pictures in our history books, but that was 400 years ago. You should be dead, Blake nodded sadly. Time works differently where we've been. For us, it's only been about 50 years since we left Earth, but we've learned that centuries have passed here. Lisa stepped forward, her scanner in her hand. Captain Blake, may I scan you? For scientific purposes. Of course, Blake said, standing still while Lisa ran her instruments over him. Lisa's eyes grew wide as she read the results. Commander, his cellular structure is unlike anything I've ever seen. His cells are regenerating at an incredible rate. His genetic code has been ... enhanced somehow. Enhanced how? Jake asked. His muscle density is 3 times normal. His bone structure is twice as strong as regular humans. His brain activity is off the charts. And according to this, he could live for thousands of years. Blake smiled sadly. The place we went to changed us. We didn't have a choice. We had to adapt or die. 2 more people came through the airlock. A woman with short red hair and a tall man with dark skin. Like Blake, they looked young and healthy despite being centuries old. This is Commander Helen Carter and Engineer Dan Rodriguez, Blake said, my senior staff. Jake noticed something strange about all 3 visitors. They moved with perfect coordination, like they were connected somehow. When Blake turned his head, the others seemed to know exactly what he was thinking. How are you doing that? Jake asked. Doing what? Blake replied, moving together like that. It's like you can read each other's minds. Blake and his companions exchanged glances. In a way we can, Helen Carter said. The deep current connects all consciousness. We learn to use that connection. The deep current? Lisa asked, her scanner still recording everything. The dimension we fell into, Dan Rodriguez explained. It's a place where thought becomes reality, where the laws of physics bend to conscious will. We spent decades learning to survive there. Blake walked over to one of the metal walls of the docking bay. He placed his hand against it and closed his eyes. Jake watched in shock as the metal began to glow softly under Blake's touch. The steel started to change color, shifting from gray to silver to gold. We learned that matter is just energy in a different form, Blake said, removing his hand. The metal returned to normal. Consciousness can reshape that energy if you know how. Bob Turner, the security chief, stepped forward nervously. Sir, are you still human? Blake looked at him with understanding eyes. That's a fair question. We've changed, yes. But we still remember who we were. We still care about the same things. We still love, fear, hope, and dream. We're human, just more than we used to be. Lisa was frantically taking notes. What else can you do? Helen Carter smiled. Watch this. She walked over to one of Jake's injured security guards, a man who had hurt his arm during a training exercise earlier that day. May I? She asked. The guard looked at Jake, who nodded. Helen placed her hands on the man's injured arm and closed. Her eyes, a soft blue light glowed from her palms. The guard's eyes went wide as the pain disappeared. When Helen removed her hands, the arm was completely healed. How is that possible? Jake whispered. We learned to work with the life force that flows through all things, Dan Rodriguez said. Healing became as natural as breathing. Blake's expression grew serious. Commander, we didn't come back just to show off. We came back because humanity is in danger. There are things in the deep current, ancient things that want to destroy all life in this dimension. What kind of things? Jake asked. We call them the void touched, Helen said. They consume entire star systems, leaving nothing but empty space behind. They're heading toward our galaxy, and they'll be here within 50 years. Jake felt a chill run through him. How do you know this? We've fought them before, Blake said grimly. We lost many good people, learning how dangerous they are. The beings that saved us in the deep current, ancient minds older than stars, they warned us. They enhanced us specifically to fight this threat. Lisa looked up from her scanner. Commander, I'm reading incredible energy signatures from their ship. If they wanted to destroy us, they could do it without effort. Blake nodded. We could. Destroy your entire fleet in minutes. But we would never do that. We're here to help, to prepare humanity for what's coming. Jake realized he was facing the most important decision in human history. These enhanced humans offered hope against an unimaginable threat, but they were no longer the same species that had left Earth centuries ago. What do you want from us? Jake asked. Partnership, Blake said simply. We want to share what we've learned. We want to help humanity evolve, to become strong enough to survive what's coming. But it has to be your choice. Jake looked at his crew, then back at the three enhanced humans. The future of his species might depend on his next words. Dr. Helen Shaw had studied science for 30 years, but nothing had prepared her for this moment. She sat in the main conference room of the Horizon's Edge, watching Captain Blake and his team share knowledge that turned everything she knew upside down. Your understanding of physics is like a child's drawing compared to reality, Blake said gently. He waved his hand, and a small device appeared in his palm from thin air. This is a matter converter. It takes energy and turns it into any substance we need. Helen leaned forward, her recorder capturing every word. How does it work? Everything in the universe is just energy vibrating at different speeds, explained Helen Carter, one of Blake's officers. Change the vibration, change the matter. It's that simple. Blake placed the device on the table. It was no bigger than a coffee cup, made of a metal that seemed to shift colors in the light. This little device can create enough food to feed your entire crew for a year. Or it can make gold, steel, medicine, anything you need. That's impossible, Helen Shaw whispered. You can't just create matter from nothing. Dan Rodriguez smiled. We're not creating it from nothing. We're borrowing energy from the quantum field that surrounds everything. The universe has infinite energy. You just need to know how to ask for it. Commander Beth Adams, who was in charge of ship security, watched with growing concern. What about weapons? Can this technology be used to fight? Blake's expression grew. Sad? Yes, it can. But we hope we never have to show you that side of our knowledge. Show us anyway, Beth said firmly. If there really is a threat coming, we need to know what we can do to defend ourselves. Blake nodded slowly. He stood up and walked to the empty side of the room. Computer, clear this area of all personnel except essential crew. The room's computer responded immediately, though it wasn't programmed to take orders from Blake. Area cleared, Captain Blake. Helen Shaw noticed that Blake hadn't touched any controls. The ship's computer was responding to his thoughts somehow. Blake held out his hand toward the far wall. A beam of soft blue light shot from his palm and hit the metal surface. The wall didn't explode or melt. Instead, it simply stopped existing. Where solid steel had been, there was now empty space leading to the corridor beyond. The wall is still there, Blake explained. I just convinced its atoms to exist in a different dimension for a while. He closed his hand, and the wall reappeared. As if nothing had happened, Beth Adams stared in shock. You could have destroyed this entire ship without breaking a sweat. Yes, Blake said quietly. Any one of us could destroy your whole fleet in minutes. But we would rather die than hurt. Innocent people. That's why the ancient minds chose humans for this enhancement. We have something most species lack. What's that? Helen Shaw asked. Compassion, said Helen Carter. The ability to care about others more than ourselves. Most races that gain this kind of power use it to conquer and destroy. Humans use it to protect and heal. Blake returned to his seat. Let me show you something else. He closed his eyes and held his hands out, palms up. Slowly, a small plant began to grow from his left palm. It had tiny blue flowers and leaves that glowed with soft light. "This plant doesn't exist in your dimension," he explained. "I'm bringing it here from the deep current. It can grow in space without air or water, and its flowers produce oxygen." Helen Shaw reached out to touch the plant. It felt real and solid, but her scanner showed energy patterns unlike anything in nature. "We could terraform dead planets in months instead of centuries," Darren Rodriguez added. "We could create forests in the vacuum of space. We could heal worlds that have been poisoned or destroyed. Why are you showing us this?" Commander Adams asked suspiciously. "What do you want in return?" Blake let the plant fade away. "We want humanity to survive what's coming. The Void Touched aren't just another enemy you can fight with normal weapons. They exist partially outside of reality. They can only be stopped by consciousness itself." "What do you mean?" Helen Shaw asked. Helen Carter answered. "The Void Touched feed on the life force of entire worlds. They turn planets into empty husks of dead matter. Normal weapons pass right through them because they exist in multiple dimensions at once. But conscious will, focused through enhanced abilities like ours, can touch them," Blake continued. "We can fight them on their own level. We can protect reality itself from being consumed." Dr. Shaw felt overwhelmed by the implications. "You're talking about changing what it means to be human." "Yes," Blake said honestly. "The enhancement process isn't reversible. Once you begin the transformation, you become something new. You keep your memories, your personality, your love for others. But your body and mind become far more than they were." "What's the process like?" Beth Adams asked. Dan Rodriguez looked uncomfortable. "It's not easy. The enhancement pushes your consciousness into the deep current while your body adapts. You have to face parts of yourself you never knew existed. Many people don't survive the process." "How many?" Helen Shaw asked quietly. "About 1 in 4, Blake admitted. "But those who do survive become capable of incredible things. They can live for thousands of years. They can heal others with a touch. They can reshape matter with their will. Most importantly, they can stand against the Void Touched." The room fell silent as everyone absorbed this information. Helen Shaw realized they were being offered godlike power at a terrible price. "There's something else," Helen Carter said. "The enhancement connects you to all other enhanced humans. We share a kind of group consciousness. We can communicate across vast distances instantly. We can work together in ways that would be impossible for normal humans." "You're not individuals anymore?" Beth Adams asked with concern. "We are," Blake assured her. "We keep our individual personalities and free will, but we're also part of something larger. Think of it like being part of a family where everyone can hear each other's thoughts." Helen Shaw looked at her colleagues. "How long do we have to decide?" "The Void Touched will reach the outer edge of human space in 47 years, Blake said. "We need at least 20 years to train enough enhanced humans to mount a defense. That gives you about 25 years to decide and begin the process." "What if we refuse?" Commander Adams asked. Blake's eyes filled with sadness. "Then humanity will become extinct, along with every other form of life in this galaxy. The Void Touched leave nothing behind but empty space and silence." Helen Shaw felt the weight of the future pressing down on her. The choice was terrifying but simple: evolve or die. Admiral Chris Logan had commanded the Alliance Defense Forces for 15 years. He had fought pirates, rebels, and alien raiders. But nothing had prepared him for what Captain Blake was showing him now. They stood in the main hangar of the Enterprise, looking at a massive screen that showed images from deep space. The pictures were unlike anything Chris had ever seen. Entire star systems were simply gone, leaving behind empty darkness where billions of stars had once shone. This is what the Void Touched do, Blake said grimly. They don't just destroy planets or kill people. They erase everything. Matter, energy, even the fabric of space itself, it's consumed. Chris stared at the screen in horror. How many systems have they destroyed? In our home galaxy, over 3 million, replied Captain Marie Turner, another enhanced human who had joined them. Trillions of lives lost. Entire civilizations wiped out like they never existed. Your home galaxy? Chris asked in confusion. Blake nodded. The deep current connects many different galaxies. We've traveled to places millions of light years. From here, we've seen what happens when the Void Touched finish their work. The screen changed to show something that made Chris feel sick. It was footage of a Void Touched attack. Dark shapes moved through space like living shadows. They were impossible to look at directly, as if they bent light around themselves. When they touched a planet, it didn't explode or burn. It simply faded away, becoming nothing. They exist in multiple dimensions at once, Marie Turner explained. Normal weapons can't hurt them because they're not entirely in our reality. They feed on the life force of entire worlds, growing stronger with each system they consume. Chris watched as the shadow creatures moved toward a space station full of people. The station's weapons fired uselessly through the attackers. Within minutes, both the station and its 50,000 inhabitants were gone. How do you fight something like that? Chris asked. With consciousness itself, Blake answered. The enhanced abilities we gained allow us to exist partially in their dimension. We can touch them, fight them, sometimes even destroy them. Blake closed his eyes and held out his hand. The air around his fingers began to glow with a strange light that hurt to look at. This energy comes from conscious will focused through quantum fields. It's the only thing that can harm the Void Touched. Show me, Chris said. Blake opened his eyes and looked at Chris seriously. Are you sure? What you'll see might give you nightmares. Chris nodded. He needed to understand what humanity was facing. Blake touched a control panel on the wall. The room around them changed, becoming a perfect copy of a space battle. Chris found himself standing on the bridge of a ship, under attack. All around them, void-touched creatures swarmed through space like a plague of living darkness. This is a memory from one of our battles, Blake said. Everything you see really happened. Chris watched as enhanced humans fought the shadow creatures. Their bodies glowed with the same strange light he had seen from Blake's hand. When they attacked the Void Touched, their enemies screamed with sounds that seemed to come from beyond reality. One enhanced human, a woman with short black hair, flew through space without a ship. She moved like she was swimming through the darkness, her whole body blazing with conscious energy. When she struck a void-touched creature, it dissolved into nothing. That's Commander Lisa Bell, Marie Turner said sadly. She died in that battle, but not before destroying 12 of them. The battle raged around Chris. He saw enhanced humans working together in ways that seemed impossible. They moved with perfect coordination, as if they shared one mind. When one was injured, others would instantly come to help. Their attacks were perfectly timed, striking the enemy from multiple dimensions at once. How many of you does it take to fight one of them? Chris asked. It depends on how old and strong the creature is, Blake replied. A young one might be destroyed by a single enhanced human, but we fought some that required 50 of us working together. The memory faded, and they were back in the hangar. Chris felt shaken by what he had seen. How many void-touched are heading toward our galaxy? Blake and Marie exchanged dark looks. Our scouts have counted at least 10,000, maybe more. They travel in groups, consuming everything in their path. Chris did quick math in his head. If you need 50 enhanced humans to fight the strongest ones, we'd need hundreds of thousands of enhanced people to have any chance. Exactly, Blake said. That's why we came back. The 50,000 people on our 3 ships aren't nearly enough. We need to transform millions of humans if we want to save this galaxy. But you said only 1 in 4 survives the enhancement process, Chris pointed out. Marie Turner nodded grimly. That means we'd need to attempt to enhance at least 2 million people to get the 500,000 fighters we need. The numbers were staggering. Chris realized they were talking about the largest sacrifice in human history. What about the people who don't want to be enhanced? What about those who can't survive the process? They'll be protected, Blake promised. Enhanced humans can create safe zones where normal people can live. We can build fortress worlds that the void touched can't touch. But someone has to stand guard at the walls. Chris walked over to a window and looked out at the stars. Somewhere out there, an army of nightmare creatures was heading toward everything he had sworn to protect. There's something else, Blake said quietly. The enhancement doesn't just give you power. It changes how you see the universe. You become connected to all life, all consciousness. You feel the pain of every death, the joy of every birth. You become a guardian not just of humanity, but of all living things. That sounds like a heavy burden, Chris said. It is, Marie Turner agreed, but it's also the most beautiful thing imaginable. You become part of something bigger than yourself. You understand that all consciousness is connected, that every thinking being is precious. Blake joined Chris at the window. We didn't come back to conquer or rule. We came back to offer humanity a choice. Evolve and help us protect the galaxy, or stay as you are and let us guard you while we can. Chris looked at the enhanced humans. Around him, they had sacrificed their original humanity to gain the power needed to fight an impossible enemy. Now they were asking his people to make the same choice. When do we need to decide? Chris asked. Soon, Blake said. The transformation takes years to complete, and we need time to train new, enhanced humans. Every day we wait, the void touched it closer. Chris nodded slowly. The future of every living thing in the galaxy might depend on humanity's answer to this impossible choice. President Kate Williams stood on the observation deck of Earth Station Alpha, looking down at the blue marble that had once been humanity's home. 3 months had passed since the return of the colony ships, and the weight of the decision she had to make felt heavier than the planet itself. Dr. Tony Miller, her chief advisor on ethical matters, stood beside her holding a thick report. The results from the test volunteers are in, he said quietly. Kate turned to face him. How many? We asked for 1,000 volunteers from across the Alliance. Exactly 1,000 brave souls stepped forward. Tony's voice was heavy with emotion. 247 survived the enhancement process. Kate closed her eyes. Each number represented a person, someone with family and friends who had risked everything for humanity's future. What about the ones who made it through? They're extraordinary, Tony said with wonder in his voice. Not just their abilities, but who they've become. They speak of feeling connected to all life in the universe. They say the pain of losing. The others who didn't survive was almost unbearable, but it made them more determined to protect everyone else. Through the large windows, Kate could see one of the enhanced volunteers floating in space without a suit. The woman moved through the vacuum like she was swimming in an ocean, her body glowing with soft blue light. She was helping repair damaged satellites with nothing but her bare hands and will. They really can do all the things Blake promised, Kate said. And more, Tony replied. Yesterday, I watched enhanced volunteer Rachel Gray heal a child who had been dying of cancer. Not just cure the disease, but actually regrow the damaged organs. The little girl is completely healthy now, Kate nodded. She had seen similar miracles over the past months. Enhanced humans could create food from thin air, purify poisoned water with a touch, and even bring dead plants back to life. They were everything humanity needed to face the coming darkness. But they're still human where it matters, Tony continued. They laugh, cry, love their families, and worry about the future just like us. They've just become more than what they were. Captain Blake's voice came over the station's communication system. President Williams, we have news from our deep space scouts. Kate made her way to the command center, where Blake waited with several other enhanced humans and Alliance officers. His face was grim, which Kate had learned was never a good sign. "What is it?" she asked. "The void touched have accelerated their approach," Blake said. "Our original estimate of 47 years was wrong. They'll reach the outer colonies in 30 years. Admiral Logan cursed under his breath. That changes everything. We don't have enough time to enhance and train the numbers we need." Blake nodded. "Which is why we're proposing a different plan. We don't try to enhance millions of people. Instead, we focus on creating a smaller force of highly trained enhanced humans while building safe zones for everyone else." Kate looked at the star maps Blake was showing. Red markers indicated void-touched positions, while blue zones showed potential human strongholds. "We've learned something new about Earth," said Marie Turner, one of Blake's officers. "When our ships returned, they changed the planet somehow. Earth is now a nexus point where multiple dimensions connect. It's become the strongest fortress world in the galaxy." "What does that mean?" Kate asked. "It means Earth can protect itself and everyone on it," Blake explained. "The planet's new. Dimensional properties make it nearly impossible for the void touched to attack directly. We can move the entire human population here if necessary." Dr. Miller frowned. "You're talking about abandoning hundreds of worlds." "Temporarily," Blake said. "Once we defeat the void touched, people can return to rebuild. But right now, survival is more important than territory." Kate studied the plans. It was a massive undertaking that would require moving billions of people across interstellar space. "How many enhanced humans do we need for this plan?" 50,000 minimum, Blake replied. "That means attempting to enhance at least 200,000 volunteers." The room fell silent as everyone absorbed the numbers. 200,000 people willing to risk death for a 1 in 4 chance of gaining the power to save humanity. "I'll be one of them," Admiral Logan said suddenly. Everyone turned to stare at him. "Chris, you don't have to," Kate said. "Yes, I do," Logan replied firmly. "I've spent my whole life protecting people. If this is what it takes to keep doing that job, then sign me up." Over the next hour, more volunteers stepped forward. Dr. Miller volunteered. So did half the officers in the room. Kate realized that humanity's best and bravest were willing to sacrifice themselves for everyone else. "What about you, Madam President?" Blake asked gently. Kate had been dreading this question. As leader of the Alliance, she felt responsible for making the hardest choice of all. "If I volunteer and don't survive, humanity loses its elected leader. If I don't volunteer, I'm asking others to risk what I won't risk myself." Blake smiled with understanding. "Leadership isn't about taking every risk yourself. It's about making the hard decisions that let others do what they do best." Kate looked around the room at the faces of people she had served with for years. "Then my decision is made. We implement the Fortress World Plan. We call for volunteers across the Alliance. And we prepare for the greatest challenge in human history." Tony Miller raised his hand. "I have one more question. What happens to humanity after this is over? If we survive, what do we become?" Blake was quiet for a long moment. "We become guardians of the galaxy. Enhanced humans and normal humans working together to protect all life from threats like the void touched. We become something new, but we stay true to what makes us human." Kate felt a strange sense of peace settle over her. "Then let's begin. Send the call to every world in the Alliance. Tell them what we're facing and what we're asking. Let every human choose their own path." As the orders went out across space, Kate looked up at the stars. Somewhere out there, darkness was coming. But humanity would be ready. They had chosen evolution over extinction, sacrifice over surrender. The lost colony ships had returned with more than technology. They had brought hope.